Everybody, and welcome to a new game news roundup. Today we are discussing VGChartz estimates, as we have begun posting our estimates for June, which does mean we have added Nintendo Switch 2 hardware numbers to the site. So far, we have just Japan numbers. It's just Japan. If you're wondering why, my goodness, it's so low. This is just Japan. This is just the first month of Japan. Specifically, the first 5 weeks. We follow Circana, formerly known as NPD, weeks that go into specific months. And June is a 5-week month, which goes into the week ending July 5th. I realize that's 5 days in July and 2 days in June, but we follow how they do their months, which is why we're doing 5 weeks for June. So, our Japan June estimates, we've got the Switch 2 at 1.72 million sold, estimated through the first 5 weeks, smashing records. Absolutely the biggest launch ever. Also, our preliminary data is, we knew it already had the biggest launch worldwide in its first week. Nintendo announced it sold over 3.5 million units in its first week. And yes, we do have preliminary data for the first 5 weeks for the Switch 2. It's preliminary data, which is why it's not on the site yet. We're waiting for more information to come out. But according to our preliminary data, obviously we got just a little hair over 3.5 million the first week. And through the first 5 weeks through July 5th, our preliminary data is showing sales a little bit under 5.5 million units sold, which is by far the biggest launch first month ever in video game history. That's the first 5 weeks, beating out, well, what we do know is Sony shipped 4.5 million PS5s and PS4s in their first quarter, or first, it's like 6-7 weeks, something like that. Mainly, that's when they launched in November to the end of December. 6, 7, 8 weeks, something along those lines. 4.5 million units shipped, obviously shipped and sold. Not always the same, but obviously when a console first comes out, the gap between shipped and sold, considering it's selling out everywhere, it's going to be fairly small compared to later on when the gap is like 2-3 million potentially on a console that's top-selling console, where there's always 2, 3, 4 months of units either in transit or on store shelves ready to be sold. But yeah, we're talking about a little under 5.5 million sold worldwide in the first 5 weeks, according to our preliminary data. But again, that is likely to change. That could potentially change, likely to change once more data rolls on in that we are waiting for, which hopefully by the middle of next week, some of the main part of the data we're waiting on will be out middle part of next week. Fingers crossed. And then we'll get the rest of worldwide estimates out for the Switch 2 for its first 5 weeks for June 2025. So yeah, Switch 2 smashes records again. It is up on the site now. If you go, see right there, console hardware sales. We got the Switch 2 up there, 1.72 million. And you can scroll down here if you want to see the different weekly sales here. You can just select whichever week. It's the most recent 2 months of sales there. And so obviously the one you're probably most interested in is the first week. We've got June 7th, just a hair under 1.1 million units. It's taking available data, as well, and then estimating on top of available data we have for Japan, My Nintendo Store's sales, which we don't have actual numbers from. We're just estimating how it is sold in Japan, including My Nintendo Stores, which once Nintendo releases the earnings report, we do plan on adjusting numbers if needed. As always, once more data becomes available, we do go back and adjust our estimates to be more accurate as time goes on. Alright, so Switches 2 is up live on the front page here. It is also up on the platform totals page. Again, I'll leave links below in the description. Also, I need our coder to apparently update this right here, because it's he updated the front page one, but not this one, but that's not a big deal. I'll get that updated later on. But I go to platform totals page. You scroll all the way down to 41st place, 1.72 million, just Japan so far, is the Nintendo Switch 2. Based on our preliminary data, its first month it will be in 30th place, ahead of the Intellivision, with a bit under 5.5 million units sold. Current preliminary data is showing. And then, obviously, we'll see. It's going to probably quickly move up this chart in the coming months. We will see how well it keeps on selling. But yeah, stay tuned to VGChartz as we update our estimates. At least once a month. Obviously, we update stuff monthly, but we usually get Japan data out first, then we'll get America's data, then Europe, and then from there, worldwide estimates each and every month. So yeah, that is pretty good start for the Switch 2 in Japan. We've got an article up here. Nintendo Switch 2, unsurprisingly, was the best-selling console in Japan, with 1.72 million units sold for June 2025, according to our estimates. This is the biggest launch month in the history of Japan. Also in Japan, we got about 70, just a hair under 76,000 Switch 1 sold for the month of June. It's nearing 36 million units sold lifetime. It passed the DS a while ago, actually, and is the best-selling video game platform of all time. We will be doing monthly sales comparisons with the Switch 2, comparing it to the Switch 1 in Japan for an article, the US, Europe, as well as worldwide. And also one other one, we're also going to be doing the Switch 2 versus PS5. Again, these are all launch-align sales to see how well it holds up against the Switch 1, as well as the PS5. And if there are any other interesting sales comparisons we can do, we will add those in the future. Also, Switch 2 sales compared to the first month for the Switch 1 in 2017, again, specifically for Japan. Yeah, it's up by 1.15 million units. Yeah, if you're wondering what that means, the Switch 2 first 5 weeks were 3 times bigger than the Switch 1. Obviously, one of the key things of having a big launch is having lots of units available. Obviously, demand is crucial, but, you know, if demand outstrips supply, well, they only can sell what's available. So, but as far as we can tell, Switch 2 is selling a lot of gangbusters in most places. It basically had the biggest launch everywhere we have specific data for, had the biggest launch ever in Japan, had the biggest launch ever in the US, in France, in Spain. One place we actually have specific launch week sales data from is the UK. The one place it did not have the biggest video game launch ever. It did have the biggest Nintendo launch ever in the UK, but it did not have the biggest launch in UK history. But everywhere else we have data, it was the biggest launch ever. And a lot of places by a decent amount. A very big, decent amount. And obviously, already in its first month, the Switch 2 is easily the best-selling video game platform in Japan with 1.72 million units sold. Compared to the Switch 1, which has sold 806,000 units through June. PS5, 453,000. Xbox Series X, which is sales dwindling really everywhere, with a hair under 22,000 units sold in 6 months in Japan. Mind you, Xbox has never done well in Japan. Even though Xbox Series XS is the second best-selling Xbox ever in Japan. The best-selling being the 360 with 1.66 million, I believe, off the top of my head, and then 0.68 million for the Series X, but we're not discussing that here. We're discussing the Switch 2, which, again, I want to quickly go over, yes, our estimates here, and we are estimating My Nintendo Store sales on top of available data, which will then be adjusted, if need be, once Nintendo releases their earnings report, which should be available on August 1st. At least if you're in Japan, August 1st. I think it'd be like 2 or 3 in the morning for me here on the east coast of the US, and then technically maybe July 31st if you're on the west coast, but so yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention that. Smash's records, our preliminary data showing a little under 5.5 million units sold in its first 5 weeks, which is absolutely insane and amazing and absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, by far the biggest launch in video game history, biggest first week ever, and biggest first month. By far. It's not like, well, if we get some more information, we have to lower preliminary estimates. Now, even if we do that, it's still going to be the best-selling first month ever in video game history. So again, if you want to keep an eye on VGChartz as we upload more sales. So yeah, July 23rd, we should be getting US numbers. We should get America's estimates out later that day. Potentially Europe, depending on how long everything takes to do. And then worldwide a day after that. So by the end of next week, we should have worldwide sales for June. So we should have the first worldwide estimates out by the end of next week for the Switch 2. And again, adjustments will happen when Nintendo releases their earnings report, if need to be done. If they need to be done. But anyways, that should I'm trying to think if there is. Oh, yeah, there's one other little thing. Not Switch 2 related, but we did add a couple new things in our drop down here. If you ever use the site here. You go to best-selling consoles and best-selling handhelds. These are two new things we added to the drop-down list. If you want to see the 5 best-selling video game consoles of all time, we got the PS2, Switch, PS4, PS1, and Wii. And then the best-selling handhelds, it's, well, DS, Game Boy, PSP, Game Boy Advance, and 3DS. It's all Nintendo except for the PSP for best-selling handhelds of all time. Which is something I thought we'd add it just for people who are curious. Just add a little extra thing for users for this site. And then, yeah, Switch 2 is currently under current. And then obviously we'll see how things go. We're planning on keeping all these here, even the Switch 1, even the Switch 2 has replaced it, because a lot of people are trying to pay attention to see Switch 2 outselling the DS, maybe in the future outselling the PS2. We will see as sales are dropping, but also it's not crazy far off. It should outsell the DS at some point. PS2, it's about 10 million, give or take, away from outselling the PS2. But also, a little thing I've noted, if you do go to the site before US, there's weird things in the code. There's a couple of things where Switch 2 has not been added yet. There's weird things in the code that are coder, because it's stuff in the code from 15, 20 years ago, which is why the Switch 2 isn't showing here on the hardware by date and the hardware year-on-year sales. It's the weird thing in the code where it's not going to show until we have US numbers up. Why? I don't know. Don't know why it's in the code. Our code is just worried that if he goes to fix it, it might just break a lot of things. Otherwise, once US data is out in just a little over a week, it's like, well, why worry about breaking things? We just wait a week, and then Switch 2 will be added. We don't have to worry about it, type of thing. So, yeah, just a little note of there if you go to the weekly hardware comparisons, hardware by date thing. And obviously, it's just Japan numbers at the moment, so far on there. And then hardware year on year, similar. You go to the drop-down list, you do not see Switch 2. Is not available there. Although, for some reason, the global is accurate. 1.85 million, that includes the Switch 2. So I don't know. It's weird things with the code. Old code from a long time ago, and our current coder is just worried about breaking things. But otherwise, yeah, once US data is available, we did do a quick test. Once US data is posted, it will show up here and on the hardware by date. Otherwise, yeah, it should be available everywhere on the site. Of course, if I miss anything, it will be added later on if we've missed anything. But yeah, I just want to quickly go over Switch 2, absolutely selling gangbusters. Breaking records in its first month, and we'll see how sales go in the coming months, because I'm very curious to see how well it keeps selling, obviously. Switch 1, to see how well that keeps on selling. You know, it's been replaced, to see when it outsells the DS, maybe by the end of the year or early next year, depending on how much sales drop and how decent sales are for the holiday, if there's a big drop or not compared to last year. And then obviously PS5 is that moves up the list of best-selling platforms. Series X and S, well, sales, I hate to say it, sales of Xbox are dwindling. It's got, if you're very quickly, you see here, Switch 1, 150.77 million sold, sell-through, even though obviously there's a gap between sold and shipped. It will be passing the DS maybe by the end of the year, early next year. PS5, we got in 12th place. By the end of the year, we'll see. It should be moving up the list. Should outsell the Game Boy Advance, PSP, 360, and PS3 probably by the end of the year. If not, by the beginning of next year, I'll sell the PS3. Then it'll be a bit of a time. It'll be a little bit longer. Maybe the end of next year where it outsells the Wii. And then the PS1, and we'll see if and when it catches the PS4. Depends when the PS6 comes out, basically, is the biggest thing. If it's got a longer lifespan, if the PS6 comes out 8 years after the PS5, more like chance it can outsell the PS4. And then another quick mention, the Xbox Series X and S has one more console it'll pass, and that's going to be it with how sales are doing. We have an estimated 33.12 million sold lifetime. Up next is the Sega Genesis with 34.06 million units sold lifetime. So a little bit under a million to go. But then after that, it's the SNES with nearly 50 million units. So 49 million units. There's no way it's going to reach that many units sold lifetime. Unless we've way underestimated, which is unlikely we've underestimated anywhere near that. The Xbox Series X, depending on the next gen Xbox comes out, we're talking maybe around 40 million units sold lifetime, because sales are dropping. But, just thought I'd mention that real quick. So, yeah, keep an eye on VGChartz as we update our estimates. Again, next Wednesday, July 23rd, hopefully we'll at least get, unless it's delayed, the US data coming out. we'll hopefully at least at the minimum get America's estimates out on July 23rd. Europe either later that day or the following day. And same with worldwide estimates by the end of next week. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this quick overview, well, I say quick overview. I've been rambling on for a little too long. If you enjoyed this ramble, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time for some more video game sales, gaming news, and gaming industry information that I find, well, interesting or very important that I feel like I should record a video on. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. See you all next time.